Hi, Siphamandla, how are you?
Rorisang, I'm very well, thanks. And yourself?
I'm great, thank you. How's South Africa today?
Fantastic. The weather's beautiful today. It rained on the weekend,
Yeah,
but we've got some sun out today. It's fantastic. Although it's starting to set on our side. I think it's early in the morning there for you.
yeah, it is. It was snowing for the past couple of days. Still trying to get used to the snow and the coldness. We never have minus 35 in South Africa, so still
Yeah.
used to that. Siphamandla, thank you for joining us today on the IT Global Direction podcast. If you can just quickly introduce yourself to our viewers, who are you? What do you do?
Sure. So I'm Siphamandla Masuku. I think the best way to describe myself is a digital enthusiast. So I focus on developing strategies and advising on the development and execution of strategies towards progressing an organization's digital evolution, whether that be in kind of evaluating and exploiting new and emerging digital technologies, or around kind of discussing ways of work, or around organizational design and innovation management.
Wow, that's incredible. And Samantha, from what you are doing from a digital perspective, how do you foresee this evolving from the IT side? How do you see this changing and evolving going forward?
Oh, well, it's actually it's so interesting just how the evolution has happened thus far. Although I don't think that we can use the evolution to date to predict what the evolution will be
Yeah.
in the future. So if you think about kind of progressing from even just the nature or the role of IT within an organizational context
Mhm.
being more of a supporting capability, a back office function, to becoming kind of a partner, an enabler, and now to really being a driver, to being at the core of the business model of very many organizations, and having to really be able to embrace what is now no longer just information technology, but what is digital technologies, which I don't believe are an IT thing. I think they're a business thing. But you very much need kind of those IT expertise to be able to effectively evaluate them and be able to measure what the potential impact of them are, not just on your organization, but on your industry and what the opportunities that they might unveil will be.
Yeah, you mentioned something interesting. So in the past, we had IT strategy and business strategy, and now there's another
Mm.
level called digital. And you mentioning that it has a dotted line to business strategy. Can you just enlighten us there on how does this now work? Because we always had business and IT strategy.
Sure. Well, even if we just look at kind of digitization, digitalization, and then the very buzzwordy digital transformation, right? I think IT as a back office function, if you think about it in that paradigm, or a supporting function, is very much in the space of digitization and digitalization, partially in digitalization, but it's mostly just around making what is analog digital, right? And maybe making what were analog processes, digital processes, or available via digital channels and mechanisms. And I think that's where we've been for a very long time.
Mm.
I think where we are now with the discussion on digital transformation or digital evolution or whatever, the digital core, whichever you want to call it, it's about creation, right? It's about brand new business models that are enabled purely because IT exists. In
Mhm.
the absence of it, you wouldn't be able to have those types of products. In the absence of it, you wouldn't be able to have or to enable that type of business model. And in that sense, then you see immediately why it's a business imperative as opposed to an IT imperative. Because to make changes to that core is actually a strategic function. It's a business strategy function. So you need to have that dotted line to understand what the objectives and purpose of the business is and where you're trying to drive to, but also for the various business stakeholders to have that understanding themselves of what the potential impact is. Now, the dotted line doesn't, I'm not mentioning it in an organogram. I don't think it necessarily needs to be from a structure perspective that it reports directly, but it certainly needs to be represented and appreciated in the context of kind of business strategy. What the actual reporting lines look like, I think, can differ from organization to organization based on their structure, but certainly the representation of digital and appreciation of its importance on kind of strategy, I think needs to be embraced from a business strategy perspective.
That sounds awesome. So if you were a person that would like to join this digital transformation industry, what kind of picture would you paint for someone to prepare themselves to be onboarded into this digital transformation? So what do they do on their side? Yeah.
Oh wow, that's a tough question for me to answer. I'll tell you why. So I've got a multidisciplinary background. My starting point was in psychology, and then in IT, and then in kind of business and management and business analysis. So there wasn't a point in time where I went, I'm going to be a digital professional, and here's what I'm going to kind of study, and this is the path I'm going to take to get there. I think how you find yourself in that environment varies for different people, but I think there's some core things that I've seen that are common across people who are in similar functions. And the first is around kind of a curiosity. Curiosity for not just technology. People think you have to be like a lover of technology and an IT enthusiast. I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think you have to appreciate technology as an extension of human creativity and as something that gives the ability to avail new affordances or avail new sets of options for people to be able to either supply, understand, I suppose, the needs of the market, and then be able to supply those needs to the market. And so the first thing is around the curiosity, but I think it's also around the understanding of business and strategy. I think that's important. And I think also just what I mentioned there around the understanding of customer. And being able to really empathize around identifying various stakeholder groups and be able to leverage that empathy to better understand their perspectives and their needs. Because technology is not always targeted, or digital technologies or innovations are not always targeted to kind of end consumers. Quite a large number of those will be targeted to internal staff. Quite a large number of those will be targeted to a very select set of users, for instance. And so the view is around really getting a sense of what difference is this going to make. So it's the older adage of people, process, and then technology, and leveraging data kind of at the core of that and across those functions to be able to make evidence-based decisions.
Oh, that's incredible. What are digital technologies?
What are digital technologies
we used to use in the past, like COBOL, assembly? Would those be considered digital technology?
Oh my goodness, the days of Cobalt. The Cobalt is still there in very many organizations, alive and well.
But can they be considered digital technologies as well?
I'm not actually sure. I'm not sure. I think it's a tricky one to kind of cut a line in the sand, or to draw a line in the sand and say this particularly is digital and this isn't isn't digital. Again, with that evolution that I was referring to around kind of digitalization, and then digital transformation. I suppose the technologies can be digital across the spectrum. If it's not analog, it's digital. But it's the combination of the technology and the processes, leveraging the digital technology itself as the core for enabling that I think is what we speak to when we refer to digital technologies more broadly. And there are a range of technologies that are older, that are digital technologies, right? So one would even argue a calculator is a digital technology. But again, it becomes, how do you leverage it in a way that you utilize it being digital to be able to expand its potential use cases. So for instance, a photo or a piece of paper, I'll have to make 1,000 photocopies to have 1,000 copies. But as soon as I digitize that, I can immediately replicate it to whatever number I would like at really no additional cost. Well, perhaps the cost in processing power and whatnot, which would be minuscule, but essentially at no additional cost. And the same for reach. Through making it digital, or through its digital properties or qualities, it has the ability to avail whole new kind of strategic and tactical options for me from an organizational perspective at lower cost than I would have had if I was trying to do it with manual or analog processes. And so, I hope that answers it. I'm not sure if I answered it directly, but I hope that.
Introducing another very important point around why go digital is scalability. Because what you just mentioned now is that if you go digital, you are able to replicate things that you wouldn't have been able to using digital technology, which is quite interesting. Thank you so much, Siphamandla. Let me just try and see if our viewers did get what you were trying to learn for us today. You mentioned that digital is not purely IT, like we used to define business and IT strategies separately. It should be embedded into business strategies. It needs to be part of it, as it enables our businesses today. You also mentioned some critical points that technologies that we used to use in the past, if they still enable scalability and ease of accessibility to our customers, it can be part of the digital technologies that are used in today's world. You also mentioned scalability, that the core capability or the core reason why we have these digital capabilities is because we want to scale. We want to make sure that we are able to reach our customers and make it easy for all customers, whether it's internal or external customers, and make sure that they still get a simplified solution using digital capabilities. If I missed out any critical point, please raise it. But I think your points were very valid, and they sort of paint a clear picture of why we're moving digital. And it's not just a buzzword, but there are some key components why we're moving digital. Did I miss out?
Absolutely. You summed it up. You summed it up fantastically. Thank you, absolutely. It's one of the big focus areas from digital, and it's the point that you summed up really well, was around you can leverage all the technologies to still adapt your business and take it forward. It's not always new is better. It's not just modern technologies or emerging technologies. It's looking at the landscape and looking at your requirements and the needs of your users and saying, how do we craft something that is able to meet those needs effectively?
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today on the IT Global Direction podcast. It was amazing having you today. Thank you for making time to share with our viewers what's great and amazing in the digital world today. Thanks, Siphamandla.
Pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yes.